My girlfriend brought home a dish with peanuts, which I'm deathly allergic to. She said, "You're just being dramatic." I replied, "Maybe so." Then I called 911, told them I was going into anaphylactic shock, and gave them our address. When the paramedics burst through the door, they found me perfectly fine, and her on the couch with her lover. So, picture this. I'm Ethan, 30 years old, and my life is basically a high-level security protocol. I'm a software guy. I code, I debug, I live in my clean little corner of San Diego. The reason for the code is simple. Peanuts will kill me. Not an inconvenience, dude. An actual carry an EpiPen, emergency room visit threat. Clean air is my only armor. But my girlfriend Sarah? She saw my physical need for safety as a failure of imagination. She's running a fitness brand. She's all about manifesting positive vibes, and she genuinely believes she can will my allergies out of existence. She's chaos, pure and simple. Our entire relationship was a study in opposites. I'm stability. I pay the mortgage. I ensure the systems run. She's the constant, spontaneous stress test of those systems. She was always pushing the limits. And I swear, the way she talked about my medical needs, it was like she was describing a faulty piece of furniture. "Ethan, you are so high maintenance," she'd sigh. "It's so dramatic. You need to stop being so paranoid." But here's the real betrayal. The cheating wasn't the first sign. The sign was the pad tie. I started noticing the standard flags first, the dead phone on weekends, the vague excuses about investing in brand strategy. I'm a coder, right? So I found the pattern. I traced the receipts and flight logs. The truth was that those strategy sessions were spent with Jake, a guy from her office she used to trash talk as the biggest idiot in marketing. The usual script. But I didn't confront her. I was waiting for a clean shot for the divorce lawyer. I knew if I yelled, she'd accuse me of jealousy. I needed her to do something undeniable. And she delivered. She walked in the door, all smiles, carrying this little takeout container. She knows my schedule. She knows I'm starving. "Look, I got us dinner," she announces. I look at the dish. It's pad thai, and it is absolutely covered in crushed peanuts. I mean, a visible, thick, heavy layer of literal poison. She didn't just forget. She made a choice. She knows I could die from that. It was the ultimate cruel test of her power over my fear. I stare at her. My chest tightens. Not from the allergy yet, but from the freezing realization of her absolute, careless contempt. "Sarah, you know I can't eat that," I manage, my voice shaking slightly. She waves her hand dismissively, already walking away to the kitchen. "Oh, stop it. You're just being dramatic. Just pick them off." That was the line. The command to perform surgery on my own food to survive her negligence. And I thought, okay, you want drama? You want an emergency? I'll give you one that the city of San Diego will have to respond to. So she told me to just pick them off. Can you believe that? That was her solution to a near-fatal allergy. I stood there, staring at the pad thai, and honestly, the thought of the emergency room was cleaner than dealing with her one more second. I looked at the counter where my keys were, where my wallet was, and then I looked at the kitchen phone, the landline, the one she never used. The fear was gone. It was replaced by a cold, precise plan. I figured, she wants drama? She's getting a full-scale civic response. I walked over to the phone, keeping my back to her. My hands didn't shake. They were just focusing on the mechanics. I dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? I lowered my voice to a ragged whisper, making sure it sounded convincingly weak and panicked. I need an ambulance. I think I'm going into anaphylactic shock. Peanut allergy. I gave them the address, our exact unit number. I made sure to emphasize the danger. I can barely breathe. I need immediate assistance. Sarah was still at the sink, pouring a glass of water. She didn't hear the initial call because I was so quiet, and she was busy muttering about my sensitivity. When I hung up, I turned around. Sarah was looking at me, finally puzzled. "Who was that?" she asked. "Were you calling your therapist?" "No," I replied, walking past her to the living room. "That was for the fire department and the paramedics." She blinked. "The fire department? What on earth for?" "Because," I explained, calmly sitting on the sofa and crossing my leg over the knee. "Someone has caused a life-threatening emergency in this apartment, and I'm making sure the city documents the source." She didn't get it. She started arguing, her voice rising. "You didn't need to call them. You have your EpiPen. This is utterly insane, Ethan." "The EpiPen," I reminded her, "only buys me time. The system needs to remove the hazard, Sarah, and the hazard is that dish you just brought home." She just stood there, speechless, realizing I had initiated a full-scale emergency response over her careless dinner choice. The sirens started about 3 minutes later. Distant at first, then rapidly growing closer. You could feel the pressure building in the air. Sarah ran to the window, her face draining of color. "Ethan! They're coming here! You have to call them back! You're not even in shock!" "I can't," I said, leaning back. "I told them I was going into anaphylaxis. If I call back now, that's filing a false report. I'd lose my developer license." Technically, that was a slight exaggeration, but she didn't know that. The sirens were deafening now. They stopped right outside our building. Sarah was practically vibrating with panic, not for me, but for the optics. She knew seeing the city's emergency services show up at our upscale apartment meant instant social ruin in our very tight-knit building community. So there we were, sirens screaming outside, stopping right under our window. Sarah was losing it, man. Pure, unadulterated panic. She didn't know what to do. She kept trying to pull me off the couch. "Ethan, get up. You have to open the door. Tell them it's fine." "Can't do that, Sarah," I replied, sounding totally relaxed. "I told 911 I was collapsing. We need to maintain consistency in the system." And then we heard the frantic banging, hard, urgent knocks that rattled the apartment door. "San Diego Fire Department, open up. We have an unconscious patient." Sarah looked like she was about to pass out herself. She knew this was her reputation dissolving into the San Diego night air. She ran to the door, pulling it open just a crack. "I called them back. It was a mistake. He's fine." Too late. The moment she opened that door, 2 huge paramedics and a couple of firefighters burst through. They didn't stop for questions. They were in full emergency mode. "Where is the patient? Where is the patient?" they yelled, scanning the room for a body. They found me sitting perfectly upright on the sofa, crossing my leg over my knee. I was holding a remote control. The lead paramedic, a massive guy with a look of pure confusion, stared at me. "Sir, you reported difficulty breathing, anaphylaxis. You called 911. "I did," I replied calmly, "but the danger is contained now." I took an allergy pill. Sarah was just standing there, mortified. She was trying to pull the takeout container off the coffee table, hide the evidence. But the fireman was quicker. He walked right past her, spotted the open container of pad thai, and saw the mountain of peanuts. "Wait a minute," the paramedic said, looking from the food to me, then to Sarah. "Is this the source of the allergen?" "Yes, sir," I confirmed. "My allergy is life-threatening. My girlfriend brought it home, knowing my condition." Sarah erupted, tears finally starting. "He's making this up. He's being dramatic. He's trying to ruin me." But the damage was irreversible. The sight of the full emergency crew, 4 people in the living room, a fire truck blocking the street downstairs, was the social execution she deserved. The paramedic, bless his heart, looked at Sarah and shook his head. "Ma'am, knowingly exposing someone to a life-threatening allergen is extremely serious. We are required to file a full report." He then looked at me, understanding everything instantly. "Sir, do you need transport for any other reason?" "No, sir," I said, getting up slowly. "The emergency has been dealt with. I just need a clean break." I walked over to the door, picked up her car keys, which she'd left on the hook, and dropped them into my pocket. I looked at Sarah, who was still sputtering denials to the fire chief. "The lease is in my name, Sarah. Your stuff needs to be out by Friday. I'm changing the locks tomorrow morning." And I walked out, leaving her there with the entire San Diego Fire Department as witnesses to her final, pathetic moment. So, I left her there, with the paramedics, the fire chief, the whole ridiculous scene. It was the only way to make the severity of her carelessness truly sink in. I drove straight to a storage facility first. I needed to pack my life before she could touch it. I called my landlord immediately, told him the relationship was terminated, and paid a fee to get the locks changed before sunrise. No keys for Sarah? Ever. The first text from her came about an hour later. She'd finally gotten her phone back, probably after the firefighters were done questioning her. It wasn't an apology. Of course not. It was pure, toxic rage. Sarah: "You psycho. You called 911 on your own girlfriend? You were trying to ruin me. You owe me an explanation." I smiled when I read it. She still didn't get it. She still thought the emergency was my call, not her pad thai. I replied with the cold, hard logic she despised. "Explanation. You introduced a known, lethal pathogen into a sterile environment. I merely enforced the safety protocol. Your belongings need to be out by Friday." The text was enough to shut down the immediate argument, but the phone kept vibrating. It was her friends, her mother, everyone she'd ever known. I let the phone ring, only answering a call from my sister, Laura. Laura, bless her heart, was horrified but understood immediately. "Ethan, I saw the neighborhood group chat. Someone posted a video of the fire truck. Sarah's telling everyone you had a mental break." "She's welcome to tell them that," I said, loading a box of my software manuals into the trunk. "I have the police report proving she tried to poison me. The biggest headache was her damn car. Remember that car she drove?" "Yeah, it was under my insurance, and the title was still technically in both our names because we were getting married." I called the dealership where I bought it and spoke to the finance manager. I explained the situation with surgical precision. Relationship terminated due to partner's severe financial and ethical negligence. Need immediate transfer of full liability. They were hesitant, so I hit them with the heavy artillery. "My attorney is filing papers tomorrow. I need my name off that title and that insurance policy before the end of the day, or I'm adding your dealership to the fraud complaint." Guess what? They expedited the transfer in about an hour. Money talks, even when you're dealing with legal paperwork. That night, I drove back to the apartment one last time to watch her. She was sitting on the curb outside, looking absolutely defeated, her phone dead. Her key didn't work. The security light was on. She saw my car. She stood up, ready for a final confrontation. I didn't stop. I just drove slowly past her, turned the corner, and drove straight back to my rental. I had already given her the explanation. I had already executed the plan. All that was left was the final, devastating silence of her isolation. So, picture this. I'm in this super sketchy motel room, right? Not the Hilton, man, the kind of place you pay cash for. I'm exhausted, but I can't sleep because I know she's still out there. I hadn't seen her since I drove past her sitting on the curb, but the phone lines were burning up. She must have begged someone for a charge, because her final, most desperate text came through. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea, disguised with legal jargon. Sarah: "Ethan, please. I just want to collect my important papers. My lawyer says you can't withhold property. You're making a huge mistake." See, she still hadn't figured out the game. She was still focused on paperwork. I decided to give her the final, clean answer she needed. No more silence. I needed to deliver the verdict directly, and then vanish. I went back to the apartment building, met the moving company I'd scheduled, and supervised the removal of my own stuff. My life, my servers, my books, my clothes, all packed into a truck. While the movers were working, Sarah showed up. I guess she was desperate enough to try her key one more time. She saw the truck, she saw my face, and she knew. The jig was up. She ran toward me, screaming, "You're stealing the furniture!" I paid for half of that. "I'm taking my belongings, Sarah," I said, my voice completely flat, pointing to the truck. "The furniture stays. It's yours. Enjoy the $2,000 sofa you bought." Then I handed her the real gut punch. I walked to the electrical panel, opened it, and flipped the breaker controlling the power to the apartment. "That," I said, "is the final cut. The utilities are now entirely in your name, effective immediately. If you want power, you call the company." She was absolutely speechless. Her eyes darted from the empty truck to the apartment door, realizing the logistical nightmare she was now facing alone. I gave her the final message, the one she had been waiting for since the pad thai incident. "You called me dramatic for protecting my health. You told me to just pick them off. Now you get to deal with the reality of being alone, Sarah. All the logistics, all the bills, all the drama, it's all yours." I didn't wait for her to retaliate. I got in the truck and drove away. That was the last time I saw her. I left her standing there, defeated, next to the symbol of my stability, the electrical box. She wanted chaos and spontaneity. I made sure she got the full, unedited version delivered right to her doorstep. Man, leaving her standing there by the circuit breaker was the hardest, cleanest break I've ever made. I didn't feel relief right away. I just felt this deep, heavy quiet. I drove straight out of the city. My life, my servers, my books, my logic, all packed into a U-Haul. I didn't care where I was going yet, only that I was putting serious miles between me and that apartment. The phone vibrated. Non-stop. But I already knew the script. First the rage, then the threats, then the pathetic bargaining. I kept it muted. The most insane call came through my sister, Laura. Sarah must have been desperate. "Ethan," Laura said, her voice stressed. "She's telling everyone you've stolen her dog's favorite toys and that she needs a police escort to retrieve them." "There is no dog, Laura," I reminded her. "She tried to kill me with a peanut-laced dinner. There are no toys. She's just trying to create a narrative of theft." That's when I realized the final step wasn't physical. It was legal and digital. I needed to neutralize her narrative before it became cemented. I found a quiet coffee shop in rural Oregon and sat down with my lawyer, Tom, via video conference. I showed him the whole timeline, the pad thai, the 911 call, the subsequent texts. Tom didn't gasp at the infidelity. He gasped at the calculated risk to my life. "Ethan, we're not just filing for divorce here. We're filing a restraining order based on endangerment and documented medical threat." That was the final shift. I wasn't just walking away from a bad relationship. I was protecting myself from a potential criminal. The most important text I sent was to Sarah, but I sent it through Tom's paralegal service. It was a formal legal notice, but I included a short, personal postscript. The legal notice confirmed the divorce filing and the restraining order. It stated that all further communication would be deemed harassment. The personal PS read, "You wanted drama and excitement in your life, Sarah. I hope the criminal record you're about to earn is exciting enough for you." I didn't hear back from her directly again. The legal wall was too high, too official. The fun was gone. The final week was spent setting up my new life. I bought a small house near a hiking trail. I didn't bother selling the old apartment. I let the bank handle the foreclosure, severing the last financial link to her chaos. The financial audit of my credit showed that I was finally clean. The emotional one was still pending, but I was confident. I looked out at the massive trees of Oregon. The air was clean, cold, and pure. No trace of perfume, no trace of peanuts, No trace of manufactured chaos. The city of San Diego responded to her need for drama. I responded by disappearing into the system she thought I was too boring to control. So that's where it ended, right? With a fancy legal email and me just hitting the road. The next few months weren't about revenge, dude. They were about rebuilding the basic operating system of my life. You know, making sure I could breathe without thinking about it. I sold the old apartment. Well, the bank took it, which was even cleaner, financially. I didn't want the equity. I wanted the severance. I wanted zero financial ties to that mess. I bought this small place out in rural Oregon. It's got massive pine trees. The air is so clean it actually stings your lungs. And there's absolutely no cell service in the woods. Perfect. I jumped back into coding. You know I love that logic. The stability of clean code was the only thing that made sense after all that chaos. I built this killer new security system for a client, and honestly, the focus I had was insane. And Sarah? Her life just imploded, man. Just like I predicted. She lost her marketing job. Her bosses decided that having an employee who calls 911 on her boyfriend over a cashew nut wasn't high-vibration energy. Go figure. She tried to stay in San Diego, crashing on friends' couches. But she burned through those favors in about 2 weeks. Nobody wants a roommate who's facing an assault charge and is legally homeless. The biggest kicker? She tried to get back with Jake, the guy from the pad thai incident. He was terrified. He saw the police report and the restraining order. He vanished. She was completely isolated. I never regretted the 911 call. That wasn't an overreaction. That was a diagnostic tool. It was the only thing that forced the truth into the light. My sister Laura still checks in. She said Sarah's mom finally called her, crying. Not mad at me, but heartbroken about Sarah. She finally saw the cold, selfish core of her daughter's personality. I didn't try to rub it in. I didn't want her misery. I just wanted her out of my system. The peace here is unbelievable. I spend my afternoons hiking, and I started volunteering at a local animal rescue. No cats, obviously. I realized I hadn't just filed for divorce. I filed for rehabilitation. Sarah wanted to call me dramatic for protecting my health. I proved that being dramatic meant being alive, and being logical meant being free. My life now is quiet, clean, and absolutely honest. That's the real win, dude. I traded the chaos for clarity, and I got the better end of the deal.